All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. The first one of the regular season. Um, you know, for people who thought, the Saints are the worst team in the league, there was a lot of bad football this weekend.
Hell yeah.
Imagine the people who are pulling for the Miami Dolphins. That was embarrassing, and you got a lot more talent. Cleveland and Cincinnati. That was not a good game. Baltimore fell victim to the magic of, I'm still going to call it by its old name, but Rich Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll be honest with you, I turned that game off at 40-25 or whatever it was.
So
I had no idea that was going to come back because they couldn't stop anybody. So,
yep.
I did not expect that. I turned it on for the last 2 minutes when Josh Allen tied it and then took the lead with the field goal. Just amazing. All right, Hemisphere. I'm not sure what song it is that you're thinking of because when I picked this name, honestly, Eddie Rabbitt's Step by Step came to me first. But I think there's like 4 or 5 other people who do this song too. Yeah. And it was a sloppy game. 13 penalties. To me, that's why the Saints lost.
Mm-hmm.
More than anything else. You shot yourself in the foot too many times. And yeah, there was a couple of questionable calls, but for the most part, it was a lot of undisciplined calls.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bob Rose joining us tonight. Bob, overall, what did you think of the game?
Well, and on our Bayou Blitz post-game show, and then again on Jordy Haltberg this morning, I made the quick joke that guys, there's only 17 weeks left in the season, before we can move on with our lives. But obviously that's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. You already mentioned a couple of the many bad teams that we saw play on Sunday. And New Orleans was by far, not even close to the worst. First and foremost, guys, it's going to be 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks before we find out not only about this team, but about all the teams through the National Football League. Because, and you say it too all the time, Alan, September is really just an extension of the preseason. I don't know when the NFL or NFL coaches are going to finally freaking realize this. That when you don't play your starters at all, you're going to get sloppy play within the first 2, 3, 4 games. And B, you're going to get a lot of soft tissue and other related injuries because these guys are not in football shape. Yeah, they keep themselves in great physical shape, but football shape is different. Now, as far as the Saints specifically, and we'll do a good, bad, ugly type of breakdown in a minute. You have to start, whether you love or hate Spencer Rattler, whether you love or hate the coaching change, love or hate the defense, you have to start with the 13 penalties. If you commit 13 penalties, you're not going to win a football game, not at any level. Pee-wee all the way up to professional. And like you said, Alan, really outside of the borderline ridiculous pass interference penalty on Kool-Aid McKinstry early in the first quarter, the rest of those penalties were extremely easy to call. And so on this pre-snap penalties, easy holds, to call on the offensive line. You're putting an already mediocre at best offense behind and down and distance situations. And then on defense, you're handing the Cardinals first downs or better field position. How can you expect to win a game that way? You can't. You hope it's going to you expect it better damn well get cleaned up in the next couple of weeks, starting with this week. But yeah, like we said, love or hate the quarterback situation, love or hate the rest of the team. The first thing you got to focus on is how undisciplined this team was and how sloppy the overall play was from a penalty aspect.
Yeah, and I got to give, Kellen Moore some props on his post game about it. He mentioned the fact that it cropped up a couple of times. They've had officials in training camp
Hmm.
and it's cropped up a couple times. You said in the games, but it's something they're going to address. It sounds like he's a guy that's going to try and hold these players accountable and work on this. So it'll be interesting to see this Sunday against San Francisco. Does he cut the penalties in half?
Yeah.
Because you're going to get some, but you shouldn't get 13. And even though they went for over 100 yards, it's almost like giving up a touchdown with that many penalties. And, what did they lose by? They lost 20-13. They lost by a touchdown. So, I mean, it just put them behind so often that it made it hard for them, first off, to keep the running game going. But secondly, it put them in obvious passing situations, which makes it even harder for a quarterback who's not an experienced one and is struggling. He's trying to master the offense. So, yeah, it's just that was probably the worst part of the game. The other part that was bad to me was the injuries.
Yeah.
Justin Blackham really, really looks like a great player, but then he retore the labrum injury he had last year. And that just makes it harder on the Saints. And I don't know where they go from here. Is it Sanker time? Do they put Sanker in there? Because Justin Howden was inactive last Sunday. Do they sign somebody? We haven't seen any names come up yet, and it's going to be Wednesday, first day of practice. Do they pull somebody up from the practice squad? I'm not sure. But you lose some experience in that secondary, and that secondary had some issues because, like you said, they were going to have communication problems. So it's really that's a scary thing to see because you really need as many veterans on this team as possible because you've got so many young players and so many players who are starting for the first time out there. And the other injury we had was Fuaga, who I didn't even see get injured. I just noticed after I think one of the few plays that he came in as a third tight end, I noticed 72, the kid we picked up from Dallas at right tackle. And then I'm looking at Twitter and people are like, yeah, they finally benched Fuaga. And I'm like, benched him? What did he do? And then they realized, oh, he has a knee injury. And then when they look back at the film, you could see that he must have injured it early and was trying to play through it and was struggling. Where do the Saints go from here for the with these injuries?
With Blackman first, and I believe you said it. He's out for the year. Yeah. We saw what looked like a pretty deep safety position through training camp in the preseason. Sanker played very well. Now, big difference between practice, preseason, and now regular season. If he gets the call, and he's undoubtedly going to get more reps, but if he gets the call to start, there's going to be some rookie mistakes. Howden, I have never been impressed with Jordan Howden. But he probably had his best training camp of his short tenured career. So we'll see if he's even able to go after being inactive last week. I know a lot of Saints fans are calling, for the team to bring back 43, bring back Marcus Williams. Folks, that ain't going to happen. Not unless there's knock on wood, not unless there's another injury. Because Williams is a former Saint, but he has not played with any of the people in this current secondary.
Yeah.
So that really doesn't benefit you at all. And even last year, last 2 years really, but especially last year with the Ravens, Marcus Williams looks noticeably slower. Hell, he got benched early last year and saw very little action after that. So I think Marcus Williams or any other safety, I think Justin Simmons surprisingly might still be out there. I don't see them going after one unless they suffer another injury. I see them, going to more reps for Howden, more reps for Sanker, and I'm hoping anyway that Brandon Staley gets a little bit creative with some defensive packages, because you want to have Alontae Taylor on the field as much as possible, but you don't want to slot him in a specific position all the time, whether it's deep safety, slot corner, outside corner. We know, we've seen this already play out. Alontae Taylor is at his best when you move him around. But Isaac Yiadom can be at least a capable corner. Maybe Quincy Riley gets more reps. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Justin Reed are going to play the majority of your snaps. So you're going to see a lot of mix and match personnel. Defensively, Hugo Amadi is going to be a factor in there as well. I expect a lot of different combinations, especially against a San Francisco team that likes to beat you with different personnel packages, different formations, and find the matchup that they want offensively.
Yeah. I found it kind of interesting that they targeted Kool-Aid McKinstry far more than Yiadom.
Yeah.
They put Harrison on Kool-Aid, and Kool-Aid kind of got beat a few times. And I'm not saying kind of, he did. Yeah. And then they started in the second half. They started rolling some safety help to him over the top, and he did improve. But it's going to be a learning. It's not, you don't have a Debo back there. You don't have Marshawn Lattimore. You've got a young corner who really, this is his first year as a starter on the outside. So you're going to have some growing pains. And this was the thing we were worried about, which is why I was so happy we had two veterans in the secondary at safety to kind of, talk to these kids and say, look, this is what they're doing to you. Do this, do that, kind of move yourself around and things, and don't bite on the double moves and things like that. And it's just going to be kind of that up and down thing in the secondary. Let's talk about then Fuaga. Where are they going to go for right tackle? I'm assuming they're Fuaga, they said it's a knee injury, but they're not saying much more than that. It may be just a sprain, which is a few weeks he's going to be out. We'll find out Wednesday in the first injury report, but I guess, I'm sorry, I don't know who the kid is, number 72, who they got from Dallas.
Sim Richards.
Okay, yeah. So I assume Richards is going to start. Don't know if Penning will be in this week. Is there any more injuries this offensive line can take?
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Although Ruiz could get hurt, and we probably would know the difference.
I would rather go with nobody there than Ruiz. Literally just line up with a big gaping hole at right guard. It feels like that's what that is half the time anyway, minus the penalties. Their fallback option behind Richards at right tackle is going to be Raduns, who has been playing left guard in place of Penning. And you're right. I don't expect Penning to play this week either. But he's another status to watch. And if they have to move, Dillon outside to right tackle, then they would probably bring in Torricelli Simpkins, the rookie.
Mm-hmm.
He had a good preseason. But again, preseason isn't regular season at any position, for a rookie or first year player. So yeah, you're basically an injury away, from looking at the patchwork offensive line that Spencer Rattler had to play behind all of last season.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about some of the good stuff then from the game before we really start ripping into them. What, to me, I thought the three oldies, the golden guys, I called them. Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, and Alvin Kamara really, really looked good. That first sack by Cam Jordan was just vintage Cam.
Mm-hmm.
And what was unusual about it was he moved over to the right side from the left, and it really kind of threw them for a second because they had their coverage. They had all their receivers on the right side. Nobody picked him up, and they looked like they were expecting to block Cam on the left side. And here he comes around the corner. He goes right past those receivers. No one chipped him, nothing, and he went right after him. And I mean, the crowd just went nuts because it was just so great. I just love what I saw out there from Cam. I mean, he looked rejuvenated for somebody who wasn't even expecting to start, kind of be more of a rotation guy. Demario Davis too. I mean, there was a play. It was fourth and short. They threw it right with the middle. Davis was waiting right there and planted him right where he caught the ball, and it led to a punt. And then, Alvin Kamara on that touchdown run, classic Kamara. I just was upset that I thought they should have used Kamara more and not running up the middle, but should have used him more in the passing game. And I was kind of, a little disappointed that the Saints, they lost containment a couple times. Yep. I almost wanted, these defensive linemen to start chasing chickens a la Rocky Balboa in the first Rocky film to go, to hunt down Kyler Murray, because he would start running around back there and it was almost like they got lost. And it just, that was the only things that kind of disappointed me. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more because they really held Arizona in check. They gave up explosive plays, and both explosive plays led to the touchdowns. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, the defense did play well enough to keep the offense in the game. They didn't score a point. I think they kicked a field goal at the end, of all in the entire second half.
Yeah, they did. The defense played well enough to win the game. The two things, really three, that I'm going to pick the defense on for. When you have a mediocre offense, be it skill-wise, play calling, or execution, or in this case on Sunday, all three, on offense. If you're going to win games, your defense has to make momentum turning plays. And that's the one thing that the defense wasn't able to do. They weren't able to get off the field in certain key situations. So you'd like to see that change. But like you said, Kyler Murray broke containment a couple of times. But he didn't run all over the yard like a lot of us were afraid that he would. Mm-hmm. And Kyler Murray's going to make a lot of plays against a lot of defenses with his legs. Next to Lamar Jackson, he is the most athletic quarterback in the National Football League, no doubt. Then the third thing, the secondary has to tackle better, be it, again, positioning or just finishing plays, which is something that you could say about all three levels. But specifically speaking, Cam had an outstanding game. Granderson, I thought, played very well. Demario, you mentioned. Brian Bresee also had a nice game. Bresee is going to convert a lot of those near misses, into big plays as the season goes along. And all this without Chase Young. So once you get Chase Young back healthy, that's another weapon, for Brandon Staley to use. And I think all of us felt like the defense would be ahead of where the offense is early in the year. And sure enough, that's what we saw on Sunday. They need to finish more plays to put their offense in better position. But other than that, you have to like where this defense is pointed right now.
Yeah, Justin Blackham had his hands on 2 potential interceptions. In fact, I think that's how he injured himself in the second one, diving for that ball. They needed more momentum turning plays. I think the sack by Alontae Taylor was a huge momentum turning play that really fired the crowd up, got the offense in gear. But they need to force turnovers and get shorter fields, because that first drive that they scored a touchdown on with Alvin Kamara, that was like a 14-play drive. This team isn't good enough to run 14-play drives consistently and get touchdowns.
Right.
They're just not. They need shorter fields. They need to be able to make some big plays. And it's going to take the defense flipping the field for them and getting good field position for the offense, so they don't have to work as hard. So we're kind of going into the bad now. But one of the things that Hemisphere mentioned, Alvin Kamara kind of disappeared in the running game and the passing game completely after that touchdown. I thought the play calling was extremely conservative, which I understood. But at the same time, I thought he abandoned the run too early. Didn't use Miller and Neal as much as he should have. Kamara had like 11 carries. I think Neal had 5 or 2, and Miller had 5.
Yep.
That's not enough. That's not enough, because they were getting a lot of, if they weren't running Kamara up the middle, which they need to get out of that, first down. In fact, that's why I'm making the jokes up in the stand. Hey, diddle diddle, it's Kamara up the middle again on first down. Why are they doing these things? Be more creative. You can throw on first down sometimes. Mix it up a little bit. And don't run Kamara up the middle. Run Miller up the middle if you're going to run somebody up the middle. Run Neal up the middle. They were getting some yards.
Yeah.
Just show some creativity in the running game and don't abandon it because you're down by 10 points. You're not going to win games with Rattler throwing the ball 46 times. It's just not. You can win one with Drew Brees doing that, but you cannot win with Rattler doing it. Rattler needs to be about half that amount. He needs to be throwing the ball about 25 to 30 times at most in a game. And that's if he's got to make a comeback. The only time the offense seemed to really be in rhythm was when they went up tempo.
Yeah.
And that was kind of frustrating too. The receivers kind of disappeared on us. I just, Rattler threw a lot of balls in the dirt, and I get that. If we're going to use this term, throw the hospital ball at, of all people, Chris Olave.
Yeah.
Don't run the Reggie Bush play against the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2006 playoff game. I mean, they're waiting to nail that dude. But yeah, just find some creative ways to get things to happen. That was probably the most frustrating thing about the offense. What bothered you the most?
Well, I'll tell you my two WTF moments of the game were one on defense when Trey McBride broke like 3 or 4 tackles to convert a third down, a key third down late in the first half, and then the other as the Cardinals bled out the clock at the end of the first half, and Kellen Moore sat on his timeouts.
Can't take them with you.
No, I was still am absolutely incensed by that. That shows one of two things. Either you have an insanely inept sense of clock management, or you have zero trust in your. And if you have zero trust in your quarterback, replace him. I'm not saying you should replace him. I'm saying if that's the way you feel, then replace him. Take a chance with the other guy, whatever you got to do. But I mean, offensively, and folks, you have to understand, if you look at Kellen Moore's history as an offensive coordinator, he doesn't use the backs a whole lot as receivers. He's not real creative when it comes to that. Even with Saquon Barkley, who can be a very good receiver out of the backfield, Saquon, had his, and I might be mistaken here, but Saquon had his career low for catches or for receiving yards when he's played a full season under Kellen Moore last year. But having said that, if you're going to play close to the vest and you don't want Spencer Rattler to hold on to the ball for downfield shots, then at least use Kamara as checkdowns and screens.
Yeah.
Same with Shaheed. Shaheed had 2 targets in the first half. Only one official, because the second one was that deep ball, that awful pass on that deep ball.
It was.
That was luckily for the Saints, they benefited from a penalty on it. You have to get Shaheed more involved. I keep saying this, and I said it, to Pete Carmichael. I said it to Clint Kubiak. Rashid Shaheed can be so much more than a deep ball receiver. I saw 2 wide receiver screens, both in the second half on Sunday, one to Olave, one to Shaheed. And then you had Shaheed on that little shovel pass, jet sweep thing too. But that's the kind of that's the other kind of way that you can get a Rashid Shaheed involved, where you're not waiting for longer developing patterns. To your point, Kamara had 6 carries in the second half. Neal had none, and Kendre Miller had 2 carries. Spencer Rattler threw the ball 35 times in the second half.
Yeah,
that's about 10 more than I want Rattler to throw for the entire game.
Right.
And as you pointed out, you're not going to win that way. I expected a much more creative game plan from Kellen Moore against Arizona, to take advantage of the crowd, take advantage of the emotion, and kind of test the Arizona defense east to west to open up some of those shots over the middle. Because we know, I thought Juwan Johnson had a good game.
He did. I'm not mad about that last catch, but drop.
Right. And I guess officially it would be a drop, but that way, if he makes that catch, we're sitting here talking about, oh my God, what a great catch Juwan Johnson made, because it would have been a great catch. To Rattler's credit, he threw an excellent ball, but it was also in triple coverage, where Juwan kind of had to make a twisting move in midair, while trying to shield a defender, and then still holding onto the ball when he hit the ground. So I don't fault Juwan for it. Jimmy Graham makes that catch, but Juwan Johnson is not a Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, and the defender had his hand between Johnson's chest and the ball. So he was pushing it out. If he could have just secured it better and come down with it with the other guy's hand pinned, you're going to get that catch. But he almost I think he did double clutch it, trying to come down with it. It was frustrating because you felt like this offense was stuck in the mud, just could not get any traction unless they were going to up tempo. And He said, well, we couldn't get much traction in the running game in the beginning. That's because you weren't creative with the running game. You're slamming Kamara up the middle. That's not going to get a lot of yards. That where you need to pitch some plays out there. You need to get him out in space. There was motion on every play. I remember that was a big deal when Dennis Allen was around, how we never ran motion. There was motion every single play. It's just, and this offense isn't going to be an offense that you can just start slinging the ball over the yard. And a lot of fans kind of want that. That's not what this team is going to be like right now. They're going to be a team that's going to be a little more methodical, but they need to have a strong running game to get defenses out of that soft shell that they were in, make that safety cheat up into the box so you can get the over-the-top shots. You can get that one-on-one matchup with Shaheed or that one-on-one matchup with Olave out in space like that.
Yep, and if you test a defense east to west, sideline to sideline, that also spreads the defense out. It's pretty clear that Juwan Johnson is going to be a security blanket for Spencer Rattler. It's pretty clear that they're going to want to use Olave on those little hitches in the middle of the field, those 6-8 yard patterns. Well, guess what, guys? If you give those guys a little bit of room in them, or you can give those guys a little bit of room in the middle, when you spread those linebackers out, when you spread those corners out, how do you do that? Jet sweeps, wide receiver screens, pitch outs, things like that. Test the boundaries, and I saw too little of that. With when you have an offense that doesn't have a big target for the middle of the field, you don't have a Michael Thomas, you don't have a Marcus Colston, you don't have a Jimmy Graham. Your best intermediate, your best big body target is going to be Juwan. So you give those guys a fighting chance by testing the boundaries. Then all of a sudden that loosens up the middle. Maybe Cooks, Shaheed, Olave, Kamara. That'll give them maybe a one-on-one or a matchup, or the ability to make a guy miss in the open field, and then all of a sudden you're getting more yards after the catch. We saw hardly any yards after the catch. Part of that is on Rattler too. He has to throw a more catchable ball. But I think I don't put much of it on him. I put it more on the play design and the game plan in general.
Okay, Hemisphere, I'm going to address this real quick because I've seen the television footage, and what we saw in the dome was a lot better than what you guys saw on TV. And I'm talking about the replay. He's saying, what were they looking at when they were reviewing the Olave catch in the middle of the field? It looked like he caught the ball. Okay, so in the Superdome on the big screen that's kind of behind us, you see the Caesar Superdome right above us. On that big screen, they replayed that catch, and then they zoomed in. And what happened was, as Olave is coming down, the ball slides. So you see the tip of the ball come down and touch the ground. And they zoomed in on that. You don't get that look on television. What you got were these faraway shots, like you're up in the terrace level, where I was sitting, actually. But you're up in the terrace level, and they're looking down at the field, so you can't really see the ball, but that's the look the officials were looking at. So when that ball slides a little bit and touches the ground, that's what did it. Now, that said, I was pissed about the first pass interference call. I thought that was garbage because they only got it because Marvin Harrison cried. He stood up and made a big deal about it. That was a legitimate play. Yeah, you could see the shirt tail kind of get pulled a little bit before he got to the ball, but as far as the batting the ball away and things, he wasn't touching Harrison at that point. They had a lot of grabbing going on both sides, and the Saints weren't called for anything. Meanwhile, one of the passes that went to Shaheed in the end zone, the cornerback doesn't even turn around.
Yep.
And there's no such thing as face guarding. I know that, but he was all over him. He had his Shaheed's arm, and then he put his hand up. He doesn't even go for the ball. He's just in the middle of him. That's classic pass interference. Don't call that. The ball should have been on the 1 yard line right there. And then the last one on the big Benson run, and you can see the replay of this thing. When you watch the replay of that 52-yard Benson run, watch not the first block, but the second block as Benson is getting by. They take, I don't know who it is, but they grab him by the jersey and throw him to the ground.
Yep.
That's holding, fellas. That's holding. My dad was telling me these are the officials that they came from a college football game before they came to our game to call this. I don't know how true that is. As John likes to point out, yes, I was at that game. And, it was just, it was horrible. The calls they missed just drove me nuts because I'm like, that play should have come back. That's 7 points off the board because they're not going to go down the field if it wasn't for that play. We lost a potential touchdown or at least a field goal because we didn't get the ball at the 1 thanks to that pass interference call. So, I mean, that was what was pissing me off. And I wish you would have hit me on the back of my bald head or something like that and say, hey, I'm right behind you. I had no idea. I'm sorry. I wasn't even looking for you, Anna. I had no idea you're right behind me. We had, I think they counted 7 pre-snap penalties.
I thought it was 8, but either way, it's a ridiculous
8.
number.
Yeah. And I was watching for Valet to pop in. He did come in a few times, but they didn't even throw to him. He was out there. They just never threw to him. It was frustrating. So, yeah, too many, Calvin, too many. But yeah, that was just the officiating that bugged the hell out of me. It's not. There were a lot of penalties the Saints earned, but there were even more penalties I thought the Cardinals earned that they didn't give. They didn't call on them, and that's always going to drive me nuts because I'm like, it's like basketball. If you're going to call fouls, I want to see it balanced out. I don't want to see they're in the bonus going to the line, and we only have 2 fouls. I don't want to see that. It's not going to happen. So anyway, what were some of the ugly things? We're kind of touching on that already with the penalties. What were some of the things that you would consider ugly?
Well, we get Ruiz.
Yeah.
And actually, Lauren wrote a quick note before she went to bed, and her the exact verbiage was, "Will you please take your foot off of Ruiz's neck?" But yeah, I mean, Ruiz was ugly. Eric McCoy did not have a good game at all.
No.
But I mean, at least with McCoy, you know how good he is. Ruiz, this is what and who Ruiz is. We talked about the penalties. We talked about Kellen Moore's play design and his timeout usage. Those were the ugly things. That and the Groupie miss. Groupie has 1 or 2 of these every regular season, folks.
I know,
he's still a good kicker. I'm not worried about him long term. But when you're in a 1-score game or when you're this type of team, you cannot miss those kicks ever.
Right. And that was, the field goal doesn't really win you the game. It gets you a little bit closer, but it doesn't really win you the game. It's just frustrating because that was another long drive that you came up empty, and you can't do that, especially with a struggling offense. You need to get the points when you can. As I told some people on Twitter Sunday, Morton Anderson missed a lot of kicks.
Oh, yeah.
We forget that because he's a Hall of Fame kicker and he made the clutch kicks, but he did miss a lot of kicks too. Kickers are going to miss, speaking of which, we need to put Darren Ritchie, I think, in the Saints Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He ruined Younghoe Koo. That was like Mr. Automatic for them for a long time. And he has never been the same after that loss to the Saints, which is good for his little ass because he got him he got that win for him earlier that last year. We should have swept those clowns.
Yeah.
But he got that, he got that kick after that pass interference by Adebo. Yeah, those are the two biggest uglies, I think, for me. The play calling on offense, and the penalties and the missed field goal. I don't know about you, but I felt I was screaming, they're only going to throw to two guys all game. Ignore the other players. It's going to either McBride or Harrison.
Literally.
I mean, that was frustrating. That was extremely frustrating. Neither one killed us, but they sure as hell broke our backs with just by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah, especially in the first half. Now, whatever they did in the second half, Harrison had two catches for about 14 yards, and McBride only had one catch. So that whatever they did adjustment wise at halftime, it worked well. But you need to make earlier adjustments. You mentioned Kool-Aid McKinstry. Kool-Aid had a rough afternoon. I believe, and I know you believe, he'll be better. But this is exactly the kind of issues that Alan and I would, and Brendan, when we'd get together on the Bayou Blitz too. These are the exact kind of issues that we've been warning you guys about. Not just from Kool-Aid specifically, but from the entire secondary in general. This unit is going, if they stay healthy, this unit is going to be far better at the end of the year than they are at the beginning. But I always circle back to the infamous Sean Payton saying, "You can't let their best players beat you. Make them find someone and put it on them to find someone else to beat you." And that's what the Saints defense needs to do going forward.
Yeah, because certainly the Cardinals felt that way. Every time Alvin Kamara touched the ball or was around the ball, they were swarming him. They were letting a lot of. I think one of the reasons that Juwan Johnson got so many catches is because they were so focused on wherever Kamara was. They were not going to let Kamara beat him. And the thing with Kool-Aid is he's a young player. That's what we really need to remember. We kind of got spoiled for so long with Marshawn Lattimore playing at the level he was playing at. And then we were able to find, guys in front of Home Depot to come in and play cornerback and look halfway decent, kind of like how Sean Payton used to be. I'll give you guys from, Bromart, bag boys and buggy cart chasers and put them out there and they'll go ahead and catch 10 passes for you combined, Drew. We don't have that anymore, so we're seeing more typical Saints cornerback play right now. Good plays with a lot of bad plays. And it's just an adjustment for fans to have to get used to seeing this again. He's not Fred Thomas bad. He's definitely not Jason David bad. He's not, just go down the list. Johnny Patrick. Just some of the clowns they've had back there.
It's a long list.
Yeah. Corey White was another one. Let me think. I got to think about some of these awful cornerbacks we had before then. But, he's not that, Brandon Browner.
Devontae Harris.
Yeah. God, it seems like, it took us forever. Once we got Lattimore, it all of a sudden, and I'm going to credit Dennis Allen for this. I know people don't like to, but, I'm going to credit Dennis Allen. He knew how to coach up the defensive backs. He really did.
Yeah.
I just think, like we were all saying, once he gets once he gets more experience, how this team plays in November and December is going to be more important than. Yeah, that's going back in time. Torrey Cook, that's Jim Moore era. I mean, I can go even further than that. I can go back to Johnny Poe and Frank Watlett at safety, Russell Gary, the mysterious Reggie Sutton, who couldn't stay off the booger candy. You know, I mean, yeah, it's he'll get better. I'm confident he's going to get better because I've seen him play better. You know, it's going to take some time. The 49ers now. I got some games running back there from the 49ers because, you know, we were in the same division as them for a long, long time. They're going through their fair share of injuries. George Kittle just got put on IR. There was talk that Brock Purdy may not play because of a toe injury and something else, like he's got a toe and an elbow or a finger or something like that. So that means Sam Jones. Am I saying that right? Is that who that is? Mac Jones. I knew that wasn't right. Mac Jones may start. Christian McCaffrey has got hamstring problems again. You know,
Jawan Jennings, shoulder, I think.
Yeah. So, of course, that means that Mac Jones is going to come back as the second coming Joe Montana, and they're just going to light us up. But, you know, this has now suddenly become, instead of, I think the odds were a 6.5-point favorite, the 49ers were favored. I think that's dropping down closer to 3. You know, so I haven't seen that lately. But yeah, you know, is this a game? Do you think that's a winnable game?
Wow. I mean, yeah, that's tough. If Kittle's the only one that misses, well, and we already know he will. If Purdy plays and he's reasonably healthy, then it's going to be a difficult game for the Saints to win because the 49ers are just on paper better all the way down the board. But if Purdy's out, if McCaffrey is limited, now remember, guys, San Francisco did trade for Washington's back Brian Robinson, who I'm a big fan of. He's not McCaffrey. But he's a capable back that could put up some yards. But Brandon Ayuk is on the PUP list too, so he won't be playing.
Yeah.
I'm going to say if Purdy plays and he's reasonably healthy, or reasonably can move around reasonably well, I give the Saints a lot better chance if Mac Jones is in. If Mac Jones is in, then all of a sudden, to me, this becomes a very winnable game. If you open up your playbook offensively, and defensively do what we've talked about, get some more 3 and outs, get a field position advantage early on, and then hold it. In other words, if you're unable to convert drives into points, at least keep the 49ers pinned back, and then the Saints defense forces a 3 and out, and you keep doing that until the Mora style, Schottenheimer style. You keep the field position battle until that other defense breaks and you're starting to put points up on the board. So, is it winnable? Yeah, I think it is. If Purdy is out, if Purdy is in, then the defense has to be something special on Sunday. I'm waiting to see how the injury report on both sides play out as we get towards the latter stages of the week.
You know, yeah, I am too. I'm curious to see who's in and who's out by Friday. Speaking of flipping the field and stuff, Kai Kroger kind of surprised me a bit. He did a good job flipping the field. He put some good hang time. He at one point he pinned him inside the 5. With a coffin corner kick. Really, I really didn't pay that close attention to the punter battle. It felt like these are just 2 guys that were going to be in here. but he really had really good kicks. He punted 4 times, so did the Cardinals, but he punted 4 times, and all 4 of his punts were really good. Just one play or one punt, we kind of lost containment for a minute, and they got a good return out of it. Kendre Miller, as a returner, got them almost to midfield on one kickoff that led to the field goal. I really like what I saw out of him. And he didn't get hurt. Again, yeah. How would you describe? Yeah, you're right about that. I shouldn't have said anything. Right. Yeah, I've just jinxed him. He's gonna shank a bunch of punts. I said in the beginning, Kendre Miller, and I hated it because we were depending so much on this kid. But he looks like he is really trying to prove something this year. That he was not a wasted draft pick. That he is he's trying to be an every down back or contribute as much as he can to be an every down back, an inside runner and an outside runner. He still has not been able to pick up the blitz. That's part of the reason why Kamara was in there so much, to pick up the blitz. But what did you think of Kendre Miller's game?
I like Kendre Miller's game. I have. Sorry, I got a sneeze brewing. I've and you know this, from reading my pieces, from doing the draft coverage with us. I've liked Kendre since his TCU days. My issue has always been his fragile body. And that's what makes me nervous about using him on kickoffs. I know he's capable, and we saw how capable he is. But the more you have Kendre Miller on the field, the more times you roll the dice, and eventually it's going to come up snake eyes. It feels like. Yeah. By the way, I've only rewatched the game once, but I did see, I think, 3 or 4 snaps where Kendre and Alvin Kamara were on the field at the same time.
I did too.
I want to see more of that. Me too. Because I think that's where, if Kendre can be effective, then it's going to force the defenses to pay attention to Kendre when he gets the football, and again, free up stuff outside the numbers or in space for Kamara. So I like what a healthy Kendre Miller can bring to this offense. We saw, you mentioned it, a couple of his inside runs. We don't want to see Kamara run inside. No. Kendre Miller should be your between the tackles guy. So use him more that way. I fully agree with you, Alan, and everybody else that said it. Alvin Kamara needs more touches. But I think if you get Kendre Miller more involved, that's gonna do a lot of good things for this offense as well.
So, DeWright, I hope I'm saying this right. DeWright one is asking our thoughts on Devin Neal, and he said he wasn't that impressed. My thing with Neal is he's had a hamstring injury and he missed most of training camp.
Yeah.
So I have an incomplete grade for Neal right now because I think he needs to learn the playbook better before he can you're just going to send him up the middle. You're not going to do a whole heck of a lot with him just because he doesn't know what he's doing. I think, again, he's a guy we're going to have to see as the season rolls on. Can he be that closer? Can he be the finisher? In September, he's not going to do much, but let's see what happens once he knows the playbook and he starts showing some wiggle or something like that. That's what we're looking for out of him is, are you more than just a sledgehammer? Can you pick up the blitz? Can you function in this offense as a pass receiver? What can you do? And I'm just waiting to see that. Okay, are we talking about Neal, or are we talking about Moore? He's supposed to be an offensive wizard. I think,
I'm guessing more.
yeah, I think so too. And I think as Moore feels more confident in his quarterbacks, and I'm saying backs because I think Chuck comes in at some point.
Yeah.
I'm right now. I got him coming in around week 5 against the Giants.
Yeah.
But as he feels more confident in his quarterbacks, I think the playbook opens up more. I totally agree with you. I think the clock mismanagement. He's not okay. It is more. Yeah. I think the clock mismanagement for the most part was based on Moore not having confidence in his quarterback. He was worried about going 3 and out and giving the Cardinals another shot at it. I thought it was dumb. I'm willing to use the timeouts, but I'm not on the sideline. You know, I was thinking about, saving a minute and just getting down the field, kicking the field goal, and going at 17-13 at halftime with the ball in the second half, because I remember the Peyton era of double dipping. You score right before halftime, you get the ball back in the second half, you score again, and now the momentum is totally flipped over. I don't know if he's going to start week 4, Calvin. And the reason why I'm saying that is that's Buffalo. And at Buffalo, that's a tough sled. They go to Seattle and to Buffalo the next 2 weeks. Seattle isn't that impressive, but it is on the road, and I think they play the Giants at home. So I think, you want to start him for the first time at home. Yeah, I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Whenever unless it's injury related, Shuck's first action is going to come in a home game. And I agree with you. I emphasize and sympathize with your frustration regarding Moore. But folks, we have to remember this. This was Kellen Moore's first ever game as a head coach, and he's still a young coach in general. The offense is his baby, so I still hold him responsible for that. But there is so much more to being a head coach than there is a coordinator. So much more on your plate, so much more going on around you. That's why, and Allen often echoes this sentiment too. That's why we don't necessarily agree with head coaches also being coordinators on either side of the ball, because there's just so much, so many other things going on. The successful one, the great ones at doing it, the Sean Paytons, the Mike Shanahans, the Andy Reids, they're more the exception than the rule. You still need a good coordinator, or at least a good facilitator, on whichever side of the ball your specialty happens to be in. And, Nussmeier and, Kellen Moore have worked together a long time. But, again, Kellen Moore was always the offensive coordinator. Nussmeier was the quarterback's coach or the position coach. So, these are new roles for all of these guys. That's why I will, while I don't mind being critical of certain things, I'm going to give them a small pass as long as they also, just like the players we talk about on the field, as long as they also show improvement from week to week.
Yeah, when you look at a guy like Sean Payton, for example, as a play caller, Payton kind of delegated the defense shit to the defensive coordinator, and he didn't want to have anything to do with it. He just basically told him, I want to blitz this guy, I want to rush this guy, I want to get a turnover, but for the most part, it was like, you're the defensive coordinator, that's your side of the ball, I'm going to trust you to do everything, I'm not going to get involved with that. And I think Moore kind of has that with Staley, because he's worked with him before and has kind of delegated that stuff, because he's like, you've been a head coach, you know what you're doing out there, you run the defense, and I may come to you for some advice on things, but I'm focusing on my offense, I'm focused on getting my guys together and getting this to work. So, and I agree with you. I think, his first game was a lot different than Sean Payton's first game. The Saints offense really didn't get rolling until I want to say about mid-season, around
That's
the
about
time of the
right.
Philadelphia Eagles game. They started out 3-0. The dome game, that was such a special night. There was no way they were going to lose that game, but they lost the following week to the Ravens.
Hmm.
And I think they lost to the Bengals too. But you came out against Cleveland in Cleveland. You kind of struggled there a little bit. They didn't do
Yeah.
very much. I think Breeze only threw one touchdown pass to Marcus Colston. That was his
Yeah.
first.
I think they
Uh,
scored 14 points or something like that.
yeah, it wasn't a whole heck of a lot of points. Green Bay, they fell behind early.
Hmm.
They looked like it was getting to be a blowout, and then it all turned around. And the Saints had the big comeback.
Yep.
But that was
But
kind of unusual.
even the dome game, they scored. It was 26-3. 7 of those points came with Gleason's block punt. So I mean,
Yeah.
you're only putting 19 points on the board. Again, we're not being critical here. And we're not giving Kellen Moore a complete pass. But as you said, Alan, Sean Payton's offense wasn't Sean Payton's offense till about mid to late October of that year.
Yeah, I always look at the Steelers game. That was when I really felt like we started to see, and that was a loss, but we started to see Sean Payton's offense. The offense is starting to look more explosive. The Philadelphia game, in the dome. And so by the time you got to Dallas, which people, we think about that game as like, oh, that was early in the season. No, that was November. They were 8-4. That was week 12, week 13. When they blew out Dallas in Texas Stadium. So, and I'm not predicting anything like this with our team. But the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because that offense took a little while to get going. And then by the end of the season, we really started to see stuff. The Atlanta game in Atlanta, we started to see more of what we would come to know for the next 16 years as Sean Payton and Drew Brees' offense. So that's what I'm saying as far as Kellen Moore as a play caller. It's going to take him a little while and figure out what this team really does well and what they really seem to execute well. So right now he's kind of looking at this playbook going, okay, they did this really well in practice, did this really well in practice, and I need to get my quarterback comfortable. So I'm going to be calling plays that make him comfortable, that are very safe, high percentage to build his confidence. And if Shuck takes over in week 5, like I think he will, it's going to be the same thing. A lot of training wheel offense. The new kids. Let's talk a little bit about these guys because we kind of touched on them. Some of the new kids that came in and played. Did you pay close attention to that? They more or less showed up on special teams, but like Kelvin Banks, for example, starting out at left tackle, and then going from there. How do you think the new kids did on this team?
I thought Kelvin Banks had an outstanding game. In fact, I thought he was the most reliable offensive lineman for that. On the Saints side in week 1. Again, folks, rookie left tackle.
Yeah,
there's going to be some bad outings, but I thought that he played a strong game. Danny Stutzman, Pete Werner.
Yeah, I know.
Pete Werner. You better start making some play. Listen, Pete Werner has always been. I've always called him steady but unspectacular. He better start sprinkling in at least a little bit of spectacular. Otherwise, Stutzman's going to take more and more snaps from him. I love how aggressive Danny Stutzman is. He looks like the heir apparent to Demario Davis. I don't want to anoint him just yet. But he gives me that feel. He brings that kind of energy to the defense. Pete Werner is just a guy. And again, this sounds so like I'm being so critical of Pete. It's not, because you need a lot of good, solid guys to make a good offense or defense. But Pete Werner is not the guy that you're going to look to make a big play in the key moments. He's not going to be the guy who electrifies your entire unit. Demario Davis is that guy. Danny Stutzman looks like he is that guy. So again, and Brandon Staley's going to play all three of these guys a lot. Demario, Pete, Stutzman together, especially on base now. His schemes and short yardage. But when push comes to shove, as we get to midseason and beyond, would not surprise me one bit if we saw more Danny Stutzman than we did Pete Werner. Those are the two guys that stood out to me. The younger guys. Because the other guys were just special teams. Although Isaiah Stallbird, I love watching Isaiah Stallbird play. I wouldn't object to seeing him get a few defensive snaps, but that's going to be tough with this linebacking core the way it stands now. But Isaiah Stallbird, you have guys like Isaiah Stallbird on your special teams. You could see why all of a sudden a guy like JT Gray can become a little bit expendable. And Isaiah Stallbird is just a guy that's so fun to watch. And he's not done making special teams plays for this team this year either.
No, he's not. Now I was going to bring up Stutzman versus Werner. It's funny, as you said, he's just a guy, Werner. If this was Jim Haslett's linebackers, Pete Werner would be how we would look at Demario Davis right now, because that's how much better Pete Werner is than those clowns. It's just that next to Demario Davis, and when you're used to seeing Jonathan Vilma, and when you're used to seeing, linebackers make plays, to look at Werner out there and he misses tackles and he if he does shoot the gap, it's like he shoots the gap with his head down, not, he'll miss the tackle because he comes in at 100 miles an hour, but he's not looking at where he's going. He looks like a bad player, and he's not a bad player. He's just not an impact player. I think Stutzman replaces him fairly soon. I think Banks was the best offensive lineman on the field on both sides. I think he is going to be a solid left tackle for the next decade, barring any injuries. But I think he is that kind of player. Flogger got hurt, so we can't really judge him. Ruiz was a swinging door. But the ironic thing was, Rattler didn't really get sacked. I think he got sacked one time. He got rid of the ball quickly. He moved away from pressure, got away from when guys got inside. I tell you what, I have a hard time with linebackers wearing numbers in the 20s and in the 40s. I'm used to linebackers in the 50s and the 90s. That's my idea of a linebacker number. But don't get me started on the number thing. It's old man yelling at the clouds. But
same
when I'm looking at teams and I'm trying to figure out what position a guy plays, and he's wearing 7 or he's wearing 2. And, I know college football does this, but in the NFL, I'm like, what is he? Is he a corner? I mean, because I can't even tell by the shoulder pads anymore. I'm like, is he a corner? Is he a safety? What position does this guy even play? So it's just hard. We really didn't talk much about it because we have to wait for the injury reports to come out. But how do you feel about this game this Sunday? I know we asked if it was a winnable game, but do you think that the Saints, is this a bad matchup for the Saints? To me, this answers a traditional question. It's not about who you play; it's when you play them. And if we're gonna play the 49ers, this is the time of the year I want to play them.
100%, because otherwise, it's not a good matchup. For the Saints, because you're talking about a very innovative offensive coach in Kyle Shanahan,
who's been there for a long time.
who has been there for a long time, knows his personnel, knows what he wants to do, how he wants to attack. The 49ers for decades are going to physically challenge you on both sides of the line of scrimmage, which is that's going to. We talk about how well we thought the Saints front seven played defensively, and how worried we are about the thin offensive line because of injuries. Well, going to be really tested on both sides. I did not think for 1 minute, when the schedule first came out, I had this circled in red as a definite loss, for the Saints on the schedule. And I remember, folks, I'm the guy that's been saying, as long as you get competent quarterback play and reasonably healthy team, I had this team winning 7 to 9 games, but I had this as a loss the whole time. I still feel that way. Again, unless Mac Jones plays, if Mac Jones and Talise Fuaga both play, I like the Saints' chances. If they don't, I still feel like it's going to be a loss. But as you said the whole time, Alan, I'm looking for are the Saints able to stay in the game in the fourth quarter, give themselves a chance to win. That's what I'm looking for from this team when they play a playoff caliber team like the San Francisco 49ers. So that's what I'm going to be watching for on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Chase Young shows up for this game. Can he play in this game? Because I know this is a game he wants. If we're going to see a Chase Young 3-sack game as a Saint, I think this is the game that we're going to see it, especially if it's Mac Jones.
Yeah.
It's going to be, to me, it feels like it's going to be a defensive game. Especially if the Saints run defense tightens up and makes Mac Jones throw the ball to beat him, because I think they can get to Mac Jones. I think they can affect Mac Jones. I think they can control the running game without Christian McCaffrey available. Now, if Christian McCaffrey is available and he gets magically healthy, it's going to be tough because he's a mismatch speed-wise with our defense. Offensively, for us, it looks like a nightmare. They got Robert Saleh back running that defense. That was tough when you had Drew Brees back there. I just feel like if they can't run the football better than they did,
oh God, yeah,
it's going to be tough because Joey Bosa is going to be in the backfield a lot. Because they're not going to let Joey Bosa just go one-on-one with Banks all day. They're going to move him around to get pressure. And their Warner is a hell of a lot better than ours. The linebacker. Am I saying is that his name?
Fred Warner, yeah.
Yeah. And is Greenlaw still there?
No, Greenlaw is injured, but he's in Denver.
Oh, okay. So, but I know about Warner, and they have their front seven is better than our front seven. So they can get a lot of pressure on a struggling quarterback. So we have to be able to run the football, and we have to be able to run the football effectively. You got to treat Spencer Rattler like Teddy Bridgewater, like how we treated him. He needs that running game. And he needs to be able to use a short passing game to Kamara, get Kamara in space and make those linebackers get away from the line of scrimmage and drop back. So that's the only way you can win this ball game. I have this game as a loss as well. But if Friday I see, a page and a half of injuries for the 49ers, I feel a lot better about it.
Yeah.
Do you have a Bayou Blitz coming up this week?
Yeah, barring my health, if I can keep together physically, we plan on going Bayou Blitz tomorrow evening, 8 p.m. Central, 9 if you're on the East Coast. We'll obviously be focused on that first injury report of the week tomorrow. Talk about maybe some X factors that will help the Saints. at least stay in the game against the 49ers. In different ways, we either think or hope that Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore will attack the 49ers on Sunday.
Well, good deal. Same time, same bat channel, Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock on the East Coast.
That's our plan.
Guys, check out Bayou Blitz tomorrow night. And in the meantime, thank you all for participating. Thank you for the new guys that showed up here. Appreciate it always. The show is called Step by Step. That's how we got to look at this season. Each game is step by step. Imitate Cam Jordan. We're building block by block. That's the only way you can look at this game. You can't look at this team like, oh my God, where are we going to be in the playoffs, or how close are we to get to our first round draft pick? Don't look at it that way. Look at it. Let's see how much this team grows. Mm-hmm. And that's the best way to enjoy a Saints game right now. So thank you, Bob. And we'll see you tomorrow, next week on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody. Good night. Look at this. There we go.